Yesterday it was one business model, today it's another, tomorrow it will be the new AI secret. You're not an entrepreneur, you're a dopamine addict chasing the high of a fresh start because your mind can't handle the boredom of actual work. I see the spectral energy radiating off you, a frantic hum of activity that generates the thermal equivalent of zero output. You are perpetually hovering over the starting line, mistaking the adrenaline of anticipation for the satisfaction of achievement. You bought the course, downloaded the template, joined the private community in the dead of night. Day one was intoxicating. The mental slate was clean, the potential infinite, the friction non-existent. You felt the delicious, corrosive illusion of progress simply by planning it. Then came Day 30. Day 30 is the grave of your ambitions. It is the moment the abstract blueprint collides with the dense, indifferent reality of execution. The system requires maintenance, the data demands tedious analysis, and the market ignores your well-intentioned emails. The initial euphoria evaporates, leaving behind a gray, monotonous landscape of required repetition. This is where the true entrepreneur, the one committed to the slow, brutal climb, dons their armor. But you see the necessary effort, feel the dull ache of sustained commitment, and your internal alarm screams, defect. You are not a visionary seeking optimization, you are a fugitive seeking escape. The moment resistance appears, your finely tuned architecture mental initiates the self-sabotage protocol. Instead of confronting the necessary, unpleasant task of digging through the valley of disappointment, the period where effort vastly outstrips visible results, you declare the entire strategy suboptimal or saturated. This intellectualized flight is the most insidious form of procrastination. You dress cowardice in the tailored suit of strategic thinking. You spend 3 weeks exhaustively researching a new, better framework, a fresh, glittering promise, and the cycle restarts. You are addicted not to success, but to the chemical signature of potential. The malignancy of the new start. Let us be clinical about this pathology. The allure of the shiny object is not economic, it is purely neurological. Your brain has learned that researching a new opportunity, the thrill of discovery, the mapping of an untested territory, provides a massive, easily accessible hit of dopamine. This neurotransmitter, often mistakenly labeled the pleasure chemical, is far more accurately described as the seeking chemical. It drives motivation and anticipation. When you are scrolling through testimonials for the next big thing, your limbic system is flooded. The expectation of the reward, the future profit, the effortless scaling, releases significantly more dopamine than the actual messy process of earning it. Dr. Robert Sapolsky often reminds us that when we anticipate a reward, we actually get a larger, more urgent dopamine surge than when the reward is finally delivered. Your mind has become conditioned to prioritize the anticipatory excitement of the launch over the sustained grind of the operation. Consider the neural pathway. 1. Friction encountered, Day 30. The current business requires deep focus, iteration, and rejection. This demands the slow, expensive energy of the prefrontal cortex, PFC, the seat of executive function, impulse control, and long-term planning. 2. Limbic escape. The suggestion of a new, easier way flashes across your screen. This bypasses the exhausted PFC and activates the ancient reward circuitry in the nucleus accumbens. 3. The dopamine loop. The search for the new method, the consumption of new content, the purchase of the course, becomes the reward itself. It is low-effort, high-impact stimulation. You are literally self-medicating against the pain of disciplined focus. You are creating a dopamine blindness cross to actual results. You are essentially teaching your brain that failure, disappointment, and the necessity of hard work can be instantly cured by the cheap, accessible high of starting fresh. This is not ambition, it is an avoidance mechanism, a neurological defense against the boredom inherent in mastery. Oiger the tyranny of the unfinished look around your digital landscape, the abandoned domains, the half-written sales copy, the expensive software licenses gathering digital dust. These are not trophies of exploration. They are monuments to your lack of inertia. In physics, inertia is the resistance of any physical object to any change in its state of motion. In the Sogden, architecture mental. Inertia is the sustained, self-propelled momentum required to push through the resistance field of reality. You lack this inertia because you have trained your system to prioritize short-term novelty over long-term structural integrity. Every time you pivot, you reset the clock to zero, sacrificing compounding momentum for transient excitement. You are generating heat without light, expending enormous amounts of energy in motion that never translates into forward vector. You believe you are being flexible or adaptable. I tell you the truth, you are simply demonstrating a profound lack of congruence between your stated long-term goals and your immediate fear-driven behavioral outputs. You claim to want financial freedom, but your actions prioritize immediate emotional comfort, the comfort derived from the illusion of a clean slate. Let us be brutally clear. The pursuit of the next secret actively disables the very parts of your brain, the PFC, necessary for complex strategic execution. You are voluntarily surrendering your highest cognitive functions to the whim of a reactive, primitive reward system. You are becoming a slave to your own limbic architecture, perpetually chasing the ephemeral flicker of a golden butterfly toward a dark, misty cliff. The revelation of the repetitive. The ultimate irony is that the true indicator of profit and structural stability is precisely the state you are desperately attempting to escape. Boredom. Business is not a thrilling Hollywood screenplay. It is a ledger. It thrives on predictability, standardized operating procedures, and the relentless, often soul-crushingly tedious refinement of a few core processes. The point where the work becomes dull, repetitive, and predictable is the exact moment you have successfully established a functioning system. The repetitive task, the daily cold emails, the weekly content upload, the monthly reconciliation, is the forging process. It is the friction that creates the heat, and that heat hardens the steel of your enterprise. When the processes are automated, the decisions are standardized, and the novelty has worn off, you are no longer spending energy on what to do, but simply doing it. This sustained, voluntary engagement with monotony is the price of admission to genuine success. Your current strategy guarantees that you will always be a tourist in the land of business, never a citizen. You will spend all your capital on travel guides, courses, and shiny new luggage software, but you will never actually build a home. To break this corrosive cycle, we must introduce a rigorous mechanism of forced stability. We must impose inertia from the outside, creating a mental quarantine that starves the dopamine loop of its preferred fuel, novelty. This requires a surgical procedure on your car architecture mental, a radical protocol designed to force you to confront the reality you are currently fleeing. You are the traveler who changes roads every time you encounter a stone, forgetting that all roads lead to the same desert if you do not learn how to walk under the sun. It is time to stop packing and start walking. The moment you cease packing and decide to walk, you encounter the true obstacle, the psychological landscape of the endeavor itself. It is a terrain littered with the skeletal remains of past ambitions. Most of you mistake the initial excitement, the conceptual blueprint, the new domain name, the purchase of the specialized course, for actual progress. This initial surge is merely the anticipatory high, the pure, uncut dopamine rush of potential. It costs nothing in terms of actual effort and pays handsomely in emotional validation. Your brain whispers, "See, we are finally doing the work." But true work is a descent into the valley of disappointment. This valley is the inevitable psychological trough that occurs when the gap between the speed of your effort and the slowness of tangible results becomes unbearable. It is the moment you realize that the strategy, which looked flawless on the digital whiteboard, requires hundreds of hours of mundane, repetitive, often frustrating execution. It is the cold, hard realization that you are not special, your idea is not magic, and success requires grinding friction against reality. The average individual, the one perpetually trapped in the cycle of new beginnings, possesses a highly refined avoidance mechanism designed specifically for this valley. The moment the work shifts from conceptualizing, fun, to optimizing, boring, the limbic system flags the experience as painful. It interprets the required persistence as a threat, a waste of vital energy with an uncertain payoff. The algorithm of avoidance. Your brain, in its cynical wisdom, knows a shortcut. Why endure the excruciating, uncertain climb out of the valley of disappointment when you can simply jump back to day zero of a completely different venture? Starting anew offers immediate, guaranteed psychological relief. The act of researching a new business model, learning a new technology, or pivoting to a better niche instantly floods the system with a fresh wave of anticipatory dopamine. This is the neurological equivalent of hitting the reset button, not on your progress, but on your body pain tolerance. You are chemically incentivized to flee the necessary suffering. The pursuit of the next secret is not an entrepreneurial strategy, it is a meticulously crafted escape route. It is the mental architecture of the addict who trades the long, painful process of sobriety for the temporary oblivion of the next fix. You are addicted to the potential of the zero-effort payoff. This chronic pursuit of novelty installs a profound disability in your architecture mental. The inability to sustain attention once the initial neurochemical buzz dissipates. We must understand that true, high-leverage execution requires the sustained activation of the prefrontal cortex, PFC, the region responsible for delayed gratification, strategic planning, and, critically, the suppression of immediate reactive impulses. Every time you pivot, you are rewarding the reactive limbic system and actively deactivating the PFC. You are teaching your highest executive functions to stand down, surrendering control to the primitive desire for immediate comfort. You are not searching for opportunity. You are desperately seeking neurological refuge. The protocol of forced inertia. To reverse this corrosive neurological conditioning, we must impose a brutal, non-negotiable structure. We must starve the dopamine loop of its fuel supply, novelty, and force the PFC to regain control through sustained, necessary friction. I call this the protocol of forced inertia. It is a mandatory 90-day mental confinement designed to forge persistence through the absence of alternatives. This is not a suggestion. It is a surgical requirement for anyone who has cycled through 3 or more business models in the last 2 years. If you are a serial starter, you require this intervention. The protocol is built upon 3 pillars: selection, blindage, and iteration. Ersterat, Pillar 1, the singular selection. Before the clock starts, you must choose one and only one strategic vehicle. This cannot be a hybrid, a maybe, or a conditional choice. You must commit to a single, definable method of generating revenue, be it high-ticket coaching, affiliate marketing, e-commerce specialization, or content creation focused on one platform. This selection must be made with the understanding that it is a 90-day prison sentence. You are not choosing the best option. You are choosing an option that must be executed rigorously, regardless of initial feedback. The purpose of this mandatory singularity is to immediately extinguish the mental escape hatch. As long as alternatives exist in your mind, your PFC will rationalize avoidance. The moment you lock the door, your mind is forced to redirect its energy from searching to solving. Ligir. Pillar 2, the 90-day novelty quarantine, blindage. This is the core therapeutic element. For 90 consecutive days, you must impose a total blindage against external strategic stimuli. This means 1. 0 new courses or books. You are prohibited from consuming any educational material that proposes a new business model or strategy. You are working solely with the information you possess before the protocol starts. 2. No research on alternatives. The search terms Best New Side Hustle, Secret Method 2024, or Why X Business Failed are forbidden. You are not allowed to compare your current vehicle to theoretical superior alternatives. 3. Digital isolation from success. Pornography. Unfollow or mute all gurus whose content primarily focuses on flashing results or promoting the latest breakthrough methodology. This content is fuel for your dopamine loop, manufacturing the feeling of inadequacy that drives the pivot. The goal of this quarantine is to induce radical boredom. When the brain is denied the high of novelty, it eventually becomes desperate for stimulation. Since pivoting is prohibited, the only remaining mechanism for stimulation and reward is actual effort within the defined parameters. You are forcing the PFC to build new pathways where reward is derived from execution, not exploration. If you find yourself agonizingly bored, restless, and itching to search for a new secret, understand that this agonizing restlessness is the necessary friction of growth. This is the addiction screaming for its fix. Resist it. That feeling of emptiness is the vacuum being created for real focus. Domaragir's Pillar 3, Focused Iteration, the Grind. With the strategic choice locked down and the temptation of novelty quarantined, your energy must be channeled exclusively into iterative execution. Iteration is the process of performing the chosen core tasks daily, e.g., producing content, sending outreach, optimizing ads, and analyzing the metrics solely within that framework. The question shifts from, is this the right business, to, how can I make this specific component 2% better today? This is where the concept of congruence becomes vital. Congruence is the alignment between your stated objective, e.g., achieving financial independence through this business, and your immediate behavioral outputs, e.g., sending the 20 cold emails required today. If you are not achieving results, the protocol demands that you look inward at your execution quality and volume, not outward at a new model. The failure is not in the vehicle. The failure is in the pilot's persistence. You must stop interpreting temporary setbacks as cosmic signs that you need to pivot. A setback is merely a data point demanding refinement. The true cost of perpetual starting. The constant pursuit of the next shiny object is not just inefficient, it is profoundly damaging to your sense of self-efficacy and your capacity for structured suffering. Every time you abandon a project, you send a potent message to your subconscious. We cannot handle difficulty. You are eroding your blindagem against discomfort and training your internal narrative that failure is inevitable and escape is the preferred response. Viktor Frankl taught us that meaning is often found in the determined pursuit of challenging goals, the voluntary engagement with suffering. By avoiding the valley of disappointment, you are not only forfeiting financial results, but you are also robbing yourself of the psychological reward of earned competence. You are sacrificing the deep structural confidence that only comes from staring down the tedious grind and emerging victorious on the other side. The true currency of business is not innovation, it is endurance. Those who succeed are not those with the best initial idea, but those who possess the neurological fortitude to sustain effort long after the initial excitement has evaporated, long after the work has become agonizingly dull. The 90-day protocol is the crucible where that fortitude is forged. It is a mandatory exercise in self-confrontation. It forces you to sit with the boredom, to analyze the ugly metrics, and to perform the necessary, repetitive labor that your limbic system currently despises. You must choose now. Will you remain the tourist, forever admiring the maps and purchasing the latest travel gear? Or will you commit to walking the road you have chosen, even when the sun is harsh and the stones cut your feet? The promise of the next destination is a siren song designed to keep you drifting. True arrival demands. Inertia. The traveler who changes roads every time he encounters a stone is not an astute strategist. He is a fugitive from effort. He is forgetting that all roads, whether paved in silicon or dirt, lead to the same desert if you don't possess the fortitude to walk in the unforgiving sun. This is the ultimate confrontation you must have with yourself. You are not failing because the market is saturated, or because the algorithm changed, or because the latest guru held back the real secret. You are failing because, at the precise moment that the path demanded persistence, demanded that you stare into the abyss of unrewarding repetition, you chose the immediate, effortless dopamine hit of starting over. The pivot is not strategy, It is a neurological flinch. When I observe individuals locked in this cycle, this perpetual loop of business hopping, constantly rebranding their identities from crypto genius to e-commerce titan to AI automation expert, I do not see hustle. I see fragility disguised as ambition. I see an individual who has meticulously trained their own nervous system to prioritize the immediate avoidance of discomfort over the delayed structural reward of competence. The 90-day protocol of forced inertia is designed to shatter this conditioned response. It is not merely a set of business rules. It is a psychological intervention aimed at restructuring your architecture mental. We must understand what happens when you adhere to this self-imposed quarantine. When you lock down your strategy and refuse to engage with novelty, the initial reaction is panic. The brain, addicted to the expectation of the next big thing, screams in withdrawal. This is often misinterpreted as intuition, the gut feeling telling you the current strategy is wrong. It is not intuition. It is the limbic system throwing a tantrum because its supply of easy dopamine has been cut off. You must sit with that feeling. You must categorize that internal distress not as a signal for change, but as proof that the intervention is working. The genius of the protocol lies in its ability to force congruence. If you are prohibited from exploring new vehicles, the only available pathway for the release of reward chemicals is through rigorous execution of the existing plan. You are forcing the prefrontal cortex to establish a new hierarchy of value. Reward is now contingent upon output, not input. This shift is agonizingly slow, which is why most people quit on day 45, declaring the strategy unprofitable. They miss the critical phase where the brain transitions from seeking the high of potential to valuing the satisfaction of completion. Andrew Huberman frequently highlights the neurochemical reality that the highest sustained motivation comes not from the initial burst of dopamine, the novelty chase, but from the subsequent release of norepinephrine and serotonin associated with task completion and earned mastery. The dopamine loop, by contrast, keeps you forever stranded in the expectation phase, perpetually hungry but never fed. The true value of the valley of disappointment is that it is the only place where you can forge blindage. Blindage, in this context, is the psychological armor that allows you to absorb setbacks, negative feedback, and market indifference without breaking stride. It is the deep structural confidence that whispers, the failure is not terminal. It is merely a data point demanding refinement. Every time you pivot prematurely, you are actively deforging this armor. You are teaching yourself that the appropriate response to friction is flight. You are cultivating a profound sense of learned helplessness, disguised by the frantic activity of starting. You burn energy, you spend capital, and you accrue zero psychological equity. The tyranny of the unfinished, consider the compounding cost. If you have abandoned 10 projects over the last 5 years, you have 10 records in your internal ledger marked failure to sustain. This narrative, crafted by your own repeated behavior, becomes the iron cage of your destiny. Jordan Peterson speaks of confronting the chaos of the world through the voluntary adoption of responsibility. The 90-day protocol is precisely that, a radical adoption of responsibility for one single chosen path. You are not responsible for market conditions, but you are absolutely responsible for your daily output, your commitment to the tedious, and your refusal to yield to the seductive pull of the new. When you refuse the pivot for 90 days, when you force yourself to iterate, analyze the ugly metrics, and perform the same repetitive tasks, you achieve several critical outcomes. 1. Metric clarity. You gain statistically significant data. You move past the anecdotal euphoria of the start and establish a baseline reality of performance. Most businesses fail, not because the model is inherently flawed, but because the operator quit before the data became clean enough to diagnose the actual flaw. 2. Competence integration. You move the core skills required for the business from the slow, conscious effort of the prefrontal cortex to the rapid, automatic processing of the basal ganglia. The work becomes less cognitively taxing. It becomes routine. This is the definition of mastery. and it only emerges through exhaustive repetition. 3. Self-efficacy, resurrection. By completing the 90-day cycle, regardless of the financial outcome, you send a potent corrective message to your subconscious. We can endure difficulty. We can finish what we start. This single act of completion restores more internal confidence than 1,000 motivational seminars. If after 90 days of forced inertia and rigorous execution, the data confirms the model is unsustainable, only then are you permitted to pivot. But this pivot is fundamentally different. It is not an escape. It is a strategic maneuver based on earned, objective data, executed by an operator who has proven their capacity for endurance. You must stop confusing motion with momentum. The frantic hopping between opportunities is motion. It expends heat and energy without changing coordinates. Momentum, derived from inertia, is the relentless, silent accumulation of force in a single direction. The choice is stark, and it belongs solely to you. Will you continue to be the ghost in the machine, forever haunting the first few pages of every new chapter, or will you commit to the architectural reconstruction of your own mind? The landscape of success is not paved with golden secrets or effortless shortcuts. It is a vast, monotonous plain of disciplined effort, marked by repetitive labor and the occasional, hard-won victory. The only way to traverse it is to accept the sun, embrace the stones, and understand that the road you are on is precisely the road you must finish. Lock the door, silence the noise, and start the necessary, agonizing work. The reward is not just the outcome. The reward is the man you become in the process of refusing to quit.